The 28th of March, 2024. This is Gimbalabs Open Spaces. We get together on Wednesdays and Thursdays at 14:30 UTC to just get to work together. Um, Open Spaces is a really nice model because it allows us to all bring whatever we might want to work on to the table. And what we've already done at Gimbalabs in 2024 is we worked for a couple weeks to come up with what's called a primary driver. And it says, we'd like to provide open, replicable, safe spaces to learn, to explore, and to empower individuals and organizations anywhere so that we can solve meaningful problems. It's a nice sentiment. So how do we do it? Well, one of the things we've done is we've started breaking up the work into different circles. And you could see yesterday, we started moving these circles around and organizing work in different ways. But just to show you the template, each day at Open Spaces, we have the opportunity to talk about whatever anybody brings to the meeting. But we also have some guidance in the form of these 5 circles that we defined in January while we were also writing our primary driver: outreach and advocacy, community onboarding or trust building, education, learning and teaching, sustainability and funding, and building stuff. And this gives us a really nice guide. And yesterday was pretty cool. Yesterday was the first time that we had 3 different breakout rooms running, each focused on, in this case, education, the sustainability and funding circle, and then some work that overlaps the builders and the community and onboarding work. Pretty cool to see that happening. And I'm really excited to keep following this pattern because we don't all have to spend every minute together. We get to come and create the subgroups that are necessary for focus and really accomplishing things. What a cool thing to do. So what we can do now is the same thing we do every day when we start these sessions. Thanks for letting me have a few minutes just to kind of think through what got us to today. The end, right? This is the end of Q1. This is our last meeting of March. And so when we meet next week, it'll officially be Q2 of 2024. So what we usually do is we spend 2 minutes at this point just to collect our ideas, give everybody a chance to share what might you want to bring to the group today? What's something that we could talk about? There's some sticky notes here. If you have access to Miro, feel free to use them. But if you don't have access, feel free just to unmute and I'll write down whatever you say, or you could drop it in the chat and I'll copy and paste it into here. Any questions about what we're about to do? All right, see you in 2 minutes. All right, all right. So now we have a chance just to talk through what's here. We usually go from left to right. So starting over here, I just threw one on the board, just catching up on onboarding and Builders Collab. You guys had a breakout room yesterday. And is there anything that you are excited to share with everybody? Anything to bring back to the rest of us?
Yeah, we could. Ken, what do you think? I think we could spend a few minutes, and there may be some good feedback because, like I'm thinking in terms of community onboarding and trust building, but it could be building, builders and contributing, could be learning and education. There's some stuff in there. So yeah, I could take a minute or two to uh, catch
So
up.
maybe spend a few minutes on that. Cool. I'll leave that over here just in case we agree that it's worth it. Um, Alex added this one in the chat.
Yeah, right. So we had a meeting with what's it called? GovTool working group at Intersect. They are led by IoG product team, and the idea is so why we have Intersect so that our Cardano tooling is maintained by community. And so far in the open source committee, it was stated that the goal is that like each project that is under umbrella of Intersect, so in Intersect GitHub repositories, is maintained by two contributors from different companies, right? And but what they don't mention is there's some community involvement, so people presumably not from any organization just get involved with the tooling. And what they state is that they need to distribute or decentralize certain aspects of development, and one aspect is emotional ownership of the product of the project. What they say is like there's three types of ownership they distinguish. It's legal ownership, which is I don't have no idea. Then there is practical ownership, so there's like who merges, reviews pull requests, merge requests, whatever. And then there's emotional ownership, so like Linus Torvalds owns Linux emotionally, it's his project, and he kind of. So we had a lot of discussion about this, a lot of discourse on this theme at Gimbalabs. And so, I mean, not directly, right? But it's my interpretation. So I wrote an article and I posted it in Discord and asked Steven, then Nori, and Juan to review it. But I think maybe we could also review it together at some point. Because when I asked IoG product manager or Intersect product manager, what do you mean by emotional ownership and how are you planning to achieve that? Their answer was like, so yeah, and we
What channel did you post that in? I'm looking for it.
outreach, advocacy and outreach.
Okay, yeah. Okay,
Yeah,
that's
I'm looking for it now, and it was in
I
what's the
read the
blog? Medium.
yeah, I
Medium.
read the post, but where I can't find the Medium link to put it on the Miro board here.
it should be in the post.
I'm trying to find
I
it.
got it. I got it. I got it.
Oh,
I'm
thanks,
agreeing.
uh,
Oh,
I
there
just,
it is. Sorry, I
yeah,
found it too. Okay,
no
got it.
worries.
Got it. All right, cool. Yeah, if we drop that link, that's beautiful.
Putting it in.
Thanks for thinking about that. That's an interesting topic. I think it's worth going a little deeper into that too. Beautiful. Work on education is continuing. As always, I'd love to jump back into this, but I'm also sensing that it's also good to be catching up on some other things. So might feel a pull to some other conversations just for today. I also threw something on here that maybe we won't dive too deep into today, but as we're building the educational content, this connection between student learning targets, SLTs, lessons, and assignments is something I've been thinking about a lot lately. And I do think it connects to some of this emotional ownership part, because part of my answer to this question, how do you build emotional ownership that can drive open source development, it's by doing stuff together, learning stuff together, right? When I've learned something with somebody else, I just already feel more invested in our relationship. And now I can keep going, and I think in a different way. So I do think there's some interesting connections here, but I'm happy to table the actual writing of the content for a minute. How about some of this stuff? Organizational documentation.
Yeah, that's me, Newman. Yeah, so just, and this is what we talked about yesterday. And basically we got down to the point of saying, hey, let's sort of translate the documentation that we do have, um, and then that kind of got us down into a discussion. But I'm thinking that the real sort of concrete work is just translating the things that we have in Google files and into the format of Notion, even if it's with a Notion free account, so that it can be imported into the Gimbalabs thing. uh, uh, you know, Notion main sort of, linked in and together there. The tension that I was sort of surfaced was wanting to do deep or focused work, solve meaningful problems type of work. And I think that this is because it really is the most clear problem that I face as sort of a newcomer coming in to the Plutus PBL last spring, that how to orient yourself in the community, and so that's the real concrete solution problem that I'm trying to address. And then this last one is sort of like the real question then is what's really needed to onboard or be welcome or get to art for participation slash meaningful contribution. Um, and and Ken and I had some discussions around that yesterday. So I'd like to work on that more, and then really get to the point of copying over, even if it's just no real edits, just changing it from Google Docs into a Notion so that the transfer can be easier.
Awesome. And Harsh, is this one you?
Yes, that's me. So yesterday we discussed, me and Hinson discussed about what is required in a community site. And based on those discussions today, I wanted to create like a lo-fi model, get it approved, and then work on like making the code part of it.
Heck yeah. Cool. Thank you. What if I open up some breakout rooms? I'm not going to put any labels on them, but just so we have them.
That might be thinking of what Harsha and Hinson did, because that, the model of a community site really is, the documentation of a community, and we could sort of look for those like onboarding elements, like what goes into a lo-fi community site. So I'd love to get the update there and possibly suggest that as the main room. Because I think, yeah.
Can I make a little proposal and see what you think? What if we did a little start here with a little update from you guys from yesterday, which connects Newman, I think, to a lot of the stuff that you added here.
Yep.
But then we transition to a little update. Harsha, would you mind sticking around long enough to give us a little update on what you were working on there, so we can
I mean,
see?
if I'll be like sharing my screen in the room and working anyway, so.
Okay. Well, should we all just come to your room after an update on this one, or would it be okay if we do two quick updates here and then we launch into more focused work?
I'm cool with either.
Is that okay? Yeah, I'd love to know, because I would love to frame. I think some of this is going to connect to what Alex shared and what I've been thinking too. But yeah, so maybe we spend 10 or 15 minutes just on getting the pulse, number one and number two, and then we see what we're all focused on.
Yeah.
Right.
Ken, how do you feel?
Yeah, it sounds good.
Yeah.
Cool. Can I kick screen sharing to Newman for number 1 and Harsha for number 2?
Yeah.
All right. Thanks. Awesome.
Yeah. Bing, bong, boom. Here we go. So, and I guess I'll just begin.
Yeah, thanks.
So I love the idea of just showing up and just brain dumping in. And that is a common, very steady pattern. That's always available to me. Like I can always brain dump. But I'm like, man, I really want to be able to pick up the thread of what I was doing before. And so basically that brought me to sort of like Kanban and community like documentation, to where there's like, oh, these are the projects I know I can switch into something quickly. And I figured that that's really community stuff, because people don't have, like, Gimbalabs won't have the full attention of everybody all the time. So it basically got down into foundational documents for community onboarding. And we've got this one board, and Ken was like, oh, let's work on how to document a community. That's something that he's proposed in Catalyst and sort of community collaboration sites. And so we got down into creating a driver. We were like, okay, here's the primary driver for Gimbalabs. And we got into, it's like, okay, let's make a subcircle driver, and trying to make this situation. This is the S3 driver formation, describe organizational driver, I think. And they break it down into situation, anticipated effect, and then the relevance to the organization, which is a slight change because they updated S3 just a few weeks ago. And then Ken and I got into a discussion, because he was just like, well, typically he looks for a goal. Like, what are people's goals when they come to a community? And I thought, yeah, my original goal was to learn to code in Plutus, and how to develop on Cardano, and why Cardano is a better development environment. And so we had a discussion between driver and goal. And this made me think of maybe Alex with, like, you can't push a rope, like the pull force and the push force, and how these are related. And then that's sort of, we had a discussion around these topics. Ken, does that sort of sum up, like, or is there anything you want to add?
Yeah, like we were talking some about points of entry to like a shared knowledge base. So like, if you have different people could set up different ways of trying to work your way into a knowledge base, to get a feel of where everybody's at and where you might fit in. So sort of like a table of contents, or like when you're doing the knowledge graph stuff, they call them like map of contents or box. So like you could have many different ways that people think are a good strategy for working your way into the community's shared knowledge base. And so that's sort of one of the things we were talking a little bit about.
Yeah. And then I think that, basically, because we can only really speak from our perspective, and you were saying that your starting place was the weekly Zoom meeting,
That's sort of how, like, there's not really a lot that, like, I don't know, it's the easiest way to sort of get a feel of where people are at in Gimbalabs. It's a little harder to do that through some of the website stuff, or like other ways.
And and so what supports the weekly Zoom, because I know is like, where is the link, what time, and those are
Yeah.
all done on the website.
Yeah.
And I remember
Cal-
like
calendar definitely helps to
Yeah.
get it connected to the Zoom meetings, but the Zoom meetings are like, as far as being able to sense where the community's at, I think that's the best way to do it so far.
yeah. And that and I love like where the community's at. That sort of like points me to culture, because you can immediately pick up the culture. And we are walking the talk, you know, because we're like, oh, this is an open space, and we decide what shows up. Pabon's you know, he does these email blasts, and he's all over, and he's just like, we don't really know what we're going to discuss until we get there. And I was like, yes, that's exactly it. So you can bring, you know, it's like come as you are type of stuff. And that was the first time that I saw it, because typically he's got something, you know, like a graphic or something else. But this is the first time where he's like, you know what, I don't really know what we'll be talking about, but if you show up, there will be things. So it feels like that dovetails into like, well, yeah, that's a good summary, and then it dovetails into like what Harsha and Henson are doing with basically trying to support the nascent, the emergent community in Hong Kong with with what's needed. And you know, a lo-fi, he describes it in the sticky as a lo-fi website. So I'm curious, maybe we can switch over there now, or if there's questions, I guess.
Fabulous.
And I will stop and share.
Thanks, guys. Harsha, do you want to take it away just to keep going, and we can maybe we can ask questions that span both of these initiatives?
Yeah, are you able to see my screen?
Yeah, we got it.
Yeah, looks good.
Okay. So this is the discussion we had yesterday about the community site. And so the community site is a central place to learn about Gimbalabs and Cardano in general. But I mean, it's like a lot of information to learn about Cardano as such. So we still have to figure out how to make that concise and still get people interested. And then there it's also so the main components are people need to know that Cardano based events are happening, when are they happening, where are they happening, and also like a photos summary of the events. And there is also another component for proposals that have passed and proposals that are still being reviewed or in the process of being passed, um, along with the introduction. So that's where we are at. And Hinson suggested it'll be nice to have like a Cardano wallet connector. We are not sure what we would do with the wallet connection though, but once we have designed created the site, maybe we can use Mesh.js to add the wallet connector on it. And the branding wise, it will probably be Gimbalabs Hong Kong. And we are not sure how the branding will be. Should we go with Gimbalabs branding or Sidan Labs branding? We'll still have to figure that out. And yeah, so that's the basic idea behind the site. Does anyone have any thoughts about community site, and if there are any other things that need to be inside a community site, and the purpose of the community site itself? If anyone has thoughts, this is the time, so that I can add it here.
Yeah, I've got thoughts. uh, oh man, I'm realizing I got the second cup of coffee going to me. Alex raised his hand though. Let's
Go with it. Go with it. Yeah, Alex, that's awesome.
Harsha, which AI tool are you going to use to generate the initial website?
It won't be like one AI tool. I'll keep moving from one to another. If it is like very specific code problems, then I'd probably use Copilot. But if it's general stuff, then GPT-4 or Claude or something.
Yeah, but do you know that there are free products that allow you to input the functionality of the website that you want to achieve, and it will generate the whole thing for you and even host it if you want, and provide you with the source code.
Yeah, sure. But like I
Okay.
also wanted to learn how to actually do some stuff. So
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, that's good to go. All right.
What would the domain name be? Do we want to replace the Gimbalabs website, or do we want subdomains, or how do we want to
I
handle it?
think the plan is a subdomain with Gimbalabs and whichever place the community site is helping.
So we can have like Hong Kong or HK dot Gimbalabs. Yeah, very
Yeah,
cool.
Gimbalabs Hong Kong or Gimbalabs something. Yeah.
Yeah, that would be cool. But wait a minute, what's with the AI? Like maybe
So I'll be using an AI to like build stuff. Uh, of course with the guidance of Hinson. But it'll be like a start and we'll see if at all it is possible, or if we are just like, or at least I'm assuming that we can build stuff with the AI. So yeah.
Yeah. It would be cool. I wonder if you could do something with Midjourney with profile pictures. I was looking at, so my immediate thought was, okay, yeah, like in a community site, and this is the open question, what do you look at or resonate with when you go to a community site? When you're like, oh, there's a community, for instance, the S3 community site, or something that you're interested in. Like right now, for the last month, I've been interested in role-playing games. And so I look for like sites. And one of the things that I look for is, then you've got it reference here, is super connector to different resources, relevant links, and then the key person bio and contacts. And I look at like photos and then look at their personal web pages and their profile page. It's something that for me, I really, because we really interact with people, people talking to people. Like a community is just people. And so I would love to get to where, and one of the things that I loved about Gimbalabs was one of the very first things that we did was, they're like, oh, you're here, fill out this little profile bit in the Gimbalabs Miro board. So I think that that settles me down, but I'm curious as to what others sort of see. And then just to finish that thought about the Midjourney, wouldn't it be cool if we did like, everybody submitted a profile pic or something, and then Midjourneyed it to make it look coherent and like part of the community, like color palette or brand, design style. I think that might be pretty cool.
Yeah. I mean, if people are down for that, it'll just be a photo that needs to be replaced. So that shouldn't be too hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, and as far as like discussions go, I don't know if the discussions will happen on the community site itself, but I do think we'll provide links to Discord, Telegram, and other socials where I think the conversations would happen and not directly on the site. That's my understanding. Do you think, does anyone have different thoughts? Yeah, go ahead, Alex.
What do you think about, for example, having a Discord connector? So a person outside from like doesn't have Discord can read something. So like you have on the website a section where just the most recent discussion on Discord just pops up, and you can see it in open access.
Maybe.
Oh,
yeah.
so
I mean,
on the site there would be like a most recent discussions in Discord, so they can
Something
see
like
it.
this, yeah. So like what people are talking about in Discord.
Oh,
but
that'd be awesome.
wouldn't that be like, I mean, for me, I'm thinking, what if I'm having like a personal discussion, GM, what's up? Like, I made this much money investing in Cardano. That would all be like reasonably irrelevant at times.
Well, maybe I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, meaning because basically you're saying it's like, oh, that's sort of, when we discuss on Discord, we sort of have a bit of an idea of semi-privacy, meaning it's not going out into the wide world.
Mhm.
Yeah. But it is intriguing. Maybe like announcements, like here are the announcements, things that are publicly oriented
Yeah,
from the
actually, that's a
Discord.
good idea. Let me add that. Oh, I don't know if I have
Oh
ready
yeah,
access.
good idea. Good idea. Doing the dance.
One thing I was saying to Sebastian last week, we were just talking, and this is something that has never really come fully to life on the Gimbalabs website. I don't know how familiar everybody is with it. But at gimbalabs.com, it's called the Gimbal Grid, and there's all of these kind of empty squares that fill up the page. And when that was initially designed a couple of years ago, the vision was to make it feel like the bulletin board at like a local cafe, like community spaces where anybody can put up, hey, I teach guitar lessons, I'm a babysitter, I could do this, I could do that. I would still love for that to feel like that. And it doesn't have to maintain exactly the same design in order to achieve that. But if anybody takes a look at the Gimbal Lab site, imagine those squares. Just imagine if anybody could publish to those, right? Imagine if anybody here could just drop something on that bulletin board, and you would always have this mosaic of different things that were happening. Right? Here's a project that we launched over here. Here's a Notion page over here. Here's a live coding session. Here's a course. Here's something that's in development. Here's a loose, crazy idea, but a group of people who want to talk about it. All those sorts of things.
I
I
think
mean,
of
in theory, I love the idea, but when I first came to Gimbalab's site, like this was when like I was not even comfortable hanging around like developers. It really freaked me out, the amount of information. So
oh, yeah.
Right. So it could be an overwhelming amount that we put on that page for sure.
Yeah, like I think part of it has to do with focus. So if you have a bunch of stuff showing up at the same time, then you sort of lose the ability to focus on the meaningful parts. So like I think, yeah, the idea is good, but maybe some way of um, giving giving people more focus while they're searching through things. So like not everything at once.
yeah, so, or some form of hierarchy so that, the navigation is easier.
Well, I'm thinking about the verbs in our primary driver. Learn, explore, empower, solve problems, right?
Mhm.
For, focus is not one of those words. I'm a big advocate for focus. I love focus, right? I love shutting the door and only doing one thing. And that's why it takes me sometimes, a day or two to get back to a Discord message. But at the very same time, that word's not in the driver. And some of these words do map to focus, but not all of them, right? Learning might take focus, but does exploration take focus? Or is it the opposite? Or what's the relationship between exploration and focus? Empowerment, right? If I focus too early on the wrong thing, that's not going to empower me. But if I find the right thing to focus on, it will. And obviously, for me, problem solving does take focus from a group of people who are all focused in ways that mutually support each other. I think it's interesting to think about that emerging theme that we all want, but also then to connect it like, hey, why does focus matter to me?
Well, I think part of it is the process of getting to where you're going. So like maybe you focus on the road sign so you know which direction to take to get to the next thing you want to do. Like it's not that you're going to be standing there and staring at the road sign forever. You're just
Right.
going through it so that you can get to the next thing.
Beautiful. I love the idea of the relationship between focus and exploration.
Harsha, this is awesome planning work. Thank you.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
It
Everyone
feels like we
disappeared
were.
from my screen.
Thanks. You're good. It feels like we saved our question asking, going back to what Newman was sharing on the Miro about, finding what's going on, push or pull motivations. What connections are people making to what Harsh is sharing here?
Yeah, I'm loving the idea of the road sign and that gimbal, the grid overwhelm, and the idea of the bulletin board, and where does that happen in Gimbalabs and where does it happen in Cardano? To be honest, immediately I think of Twitter, and then that is just a big mess because of the scroll nature of it. Because you never know, it's sort of, and I guess a bulletin board is a bit like that. And then this idea of focus, the relationship between focus and exploration, and needing, yeah. Like, okay, yeah. Does that help? Does that move the combo? Because I do think that's a necessary thing for a community. For instance, when I go to a new place, I always go to the REI or the places where the bulletin boards are, coffee shops, health food stores. That's a thing.
Cool.
So would you say events are like a bulletin board, or is that something different?
Yeah. What goes on a bulletin board? Yeah.
And who's allowed to post on it, right? Like Twitter, anybody can make an account and post on that bulletin board. Maybe that results in a big mess, but you can have rules about who gets to post on a bulletin board that support the community to achieve its primary driver.
Ooh. And that feels like a very practical perk or reward. It's just like, oh yeah, after you've been here for this, or you've made this many posts, or you've done this, or you've doxed yourself, or you paid, or you've done something, then you get to post on this bulletin board, or you get to pin, put things in a special area. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I have a small question. So for, at least in my head, whoever is hosting that local Gimbalabs site should be able to make those decisions. Um, how 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 much of decision making do you think they would have?
Ooh, good question.
Well, their decision can be to open it up to other sorts of decision making, right? That's one of the options. And just to think about what we've accomplished so far, right? We've already created a nascent system where somebody can make a proposal and we say, okay, you get a Notion account. What's something similar we could do to say, okay, now you're a decision maker about what goes on gimbalabs.com?
What is that? I guess a webmaster or a proposal for a decision maker on gimbalabs.com. Or but then there's the like, who decides for, there is a natural boundary there, like, or a natural scope, like, they would have for, I come up with the New York City Gimbal Labs site, and the very first thing, just to follow that thread, the very first thing I would do was look over at the Hong Kong site, because that's where they pioneered some of this thought. And what I really want to do is have a meeting here at the local coffee shop on Thursday nights. And so I really just want to be like, hey, there's a Thursday night meetup, and be able to edit, like maybe put some pictures on there. I think that's something that the Hong Kong group here had said they want to have, like, curated photos. So I would want to have I would want to ask for responsibility in the form of a proposal that says, please give me authority and I'll take the responsibility and I'd like the authority to build on this page that will be hosted on nyc.gimbalabs.com. Is that where we're headed?
I do believe that a website, you have to talk about like governance has to be separate from administration, and this is like everywhere in governments. You have politicians who are elected, and then you have civil servants who are usually not elected by employees. So, because otherwise there's too much concentration of power, and if you just make one person responsible for the website of the whole community, they are basically free to do if in case they get malicious, but power corrupts, and so there has to be mechanisms. So for example, we could have a role for website administrator who is elected, for example, for a year, and they get their website hosting is paid from the treasury, and then the administrator gets something out of administrating. I don't know, but the will of the community has to be, again, this is also a topic of discussion as OSC. How do the Cardano community express their will towards, and this comes to the idea of legitimacy, what is like they're trying to describe at the moment. So the software of that is hosted by Intersect has to represent the will of the community towards how it's supposed to be. So there has to be, and the same goes for like a community website in case of Gimbalabs. So there has to be a way for the community to express their will in a way that is measurable, so that we community can have control over if the website is like works in its interests. And then there has to be people who can make technical decisions on the spot, right? Because you don't have a proposal for everything. Like let's have a proposal to fix a typo on the website. But then there's like very fine detail towards like where does it stop a responsibility of one person who can decide on the spot and make small fixes, and like what is necessary towards changes that are affecting interests of people in the community. That's, I think, comes back to the idea that Hinson, when he proposed like to make Discord admins, and any token that you give, like anything symbolic thing, and symbols, they are important in my view, in any case, and especially in our case when we are at the frontier of what is like we are in uncharted waters. Nobody did what we are doing, right? And that is why we have to pay attention to small detail as well, and have like think about mechanisms and the balance of power.
Yep. Does that resonate, Harsha? And Hinson's not here, but did you guys get into that type of thing, or James? Does that get into?
I mean,
that's
me and Hinson didn't get into that kind of thing. So what we were focusing on is that Hinson already is running events, Cardano-based events, in Hong Kong. So first we thought, okay, let's try and solve Hinson's problem, and based on that, we can like walk back and build a template.
That's great. So what was the immediate blocker for Hinson? He's built these things and he's just like, no, I want to connect it with Gimbalabs. What was his?
So Hinson is building like a high frequency trading DEX. And like when he runs these community events, some of the folk would also tend to use like the decks and stuff. So it'll serve as a marketing for the product he's building. So that was the idea, so that events like in-person events is like a really important thing, and the proposals that have passed and all of that are really important things, so that people know what's happening and what products are available.
Okay.
Yeah, so this is a community interest to publicize their work. For example, for me, it's very nice, and thanks to James for putting my face on the Gimbalabs website. Now I can at least in places where people ask me, do you belong to any organization? I can say, yeah, I belong to Gimbalabs. This is my profile on the webpage. And this, I think, the same interest that Hinson has for his work.
Yes. And basically you're saying that it's a value, that there's some value creation because of the community value around Gimbalabs. The fact that, Gimbalabs is known, and the fact that James was in the first cohort of Catalyst funds and was, we just have authority in the fact that we've been here for so long. And then being, I guess elevated in a way to have a face on the website is like a value. Same with Hinson, is like, okay, some awareness and of the products and some marketing and a way to organize the community has a value because it's associated with Gimbalabs. And so how do we allow the community, like you'd said, Alex, like allow the community to express itself, but not get bogged down in having to have a governance action for fixing a typo, or centralizing power is just one guy that runs the website, because we know that story. We've seen that movie. We know how it ends.
So if someone is actually taking the responsibility of running like a local subdomain for Gimbalabs, that means there is something they want to gain from it as well, right? So that, I think, is the problem we should solve with the community site, is my opinion.
Mm-hmm. And this is where the questions of like how do we distinguish between responsibility and taking initiative versus centralizing power, right?
Mhm.
Part of the reason that Gimbalabs feels different from Intersect is that, right, Intersect is being launched still as a project of IOG with people from that payroll. And as such, the scope of what community members can do is strictly limited. And there is a bit of a power imbalance there. It's really hard to know, like, this is not yet a community-owned organization, right? On the other hand, Gimbalabs is not gating anything like that, but of course it also doesn't have the backing of an organization like IOG. And at the same time, for things to get done, people have to take initiative, right? What do we do when just getting things done raises red flags about tending towards centralization? And when is the right time to point it out? When it's already happening, right? Like, the truth is, I am the only person who currently makes updates to gimbalabs.com. I would love for that to change. This is not a power grab. It's just been a service I've been providing, like doing just enough to that site, right, to keep it out there in the community. I'm not power hungry to be the only person who can post things on that site. I can't wait to share it, but what's the incentive for somebody else to pitch in? What's the moment where somebody says, okay, this is the thing I'm going to take the initiative on? And I think it does come back to what Harsh is saying, right? Hinson is taking a lot of initiative, and he has good reason in his local community to do so. It's a win-win.
Mhm.
How do we create other scenarios where those, right, those things that are productive in multiple ways can take roots? So what somebody's doing is the thing they wanted to do anyway. They're getting support here to do it. And this space, Gimbalabs, is getting some benefit, right? Because now we're collaborating on that thing.
Yep. Go ahead, Alex.
So first, I want to be a little bit of that guy who points out that guy who everyone hates, who points out other people's like inconsistencies. Because James are saying about community and intersect, and that's not entirely true. And it was a very big surprise for me actually, but I think it's nice to know for everyone because we have to work with this organization. It will not go anywhere. When we talk about Intersect, in the context of Intersect, community of Intersect is this, like the set of organizations which have a stake in Cardano. So they don't publicize it, but if you read the Intersect's website carefully, it says that it's a place for organizations and firms to amplify their voice in like guiding the direction, like development of Cardano. So individuals in Intersect, they don't matter. It's not the scope of this organization. They don't say it because the community will just have outcry, but by the fact, and that's not true that IOG precisely have power and balance because, for example, the organization which owns Twig, Modus Create, they're very powerful, I think, and they earned a lot of ADA through Twig, and MLabs also has a lot of ADA. So this like there's about, I think it was said there's 12 organizations which make up have like significant stake in Cardano, and they make up Intersect. So that's a pretty stuff comes from IOG, yeah, but doesn't necessarily mean the power is in their hands because this guy is also full of strings.
Who makes the decisions about where Intersect grant funds go?
Oh, that's hidden from me because I'm not a member of any organization. There's like they have 7 committees or like establishing committees or founding committees, and supposedly one of these committees is the one which is working about like how treasury is dispensed. So it is supposed to be a sort of consortium where these organizations come to consensus towards like the future, and if they decide where money goes, that's like I'm pretty sure that MLabs and Twig have a say in that. But I want to just come back to the discussion at hand, and like you say, I am the sole maintainer of Gimbalabs website, and I'd like for that to change. And then like, how do we replicate success that Hinson is having? And for me, the idea is like to replicate success, you have to be at the right time at the right moment. And for this, you just need to kind of be waiting, so sustainability is, so maybe it will be a good idea for like to have a proposal around such a simple thing as administrating the website so that we could have like worked out a micro grant, we don't need really, it has to be something symbolic, so that we are researching the idea that Intersect and Cardano overall is researching, like, how do we make this sustainable? So like, how do we make this, like, how do we build mechanisms for balancing power? Because so far as I understand, the salespeople of IOG, they want to talk to governments and nations basically to provide them, like Zimbabwe is using dollar because they cannot have their own currency. So to provide them with a currency to use, but this requires robust mechanisms that we can explain to the politicians, and the politicians can explain it to the people down there so that they can have adoption. And this, I think, this is my interpretation of probably the vision of Cardano in the future. So like maybe just to be like working around these things and having like, yeah, there's work which is being done for free because James, you have emotional ownership of Gimbalabs, and it's not like, but maybe for the sake of, just having a discussion about that, we could have at some point in the future a proposal towards how do we have administrative role which is balanced with the needs of the community and will of the community.
I love it. And yeah, one of the things I was hoping for from the early days of January was that the work of maintaining Gimbalabs that would emerge as a priority. The website, sorry, and it's very exciting to now start to imagine what that proposal might be like. Thanks.
Yep. Yeah, that's I feel like that it's one of those resource management things, like having you James, dealing with website issues is just, it seems, especially for typos or for small maintenance things, like I'd rather have you working on different things. And it seems like it would be a good thing to offload to a community member. Yeah. And I think that would be an excellent proposal. Like that's a great proposal initiative. And I think that's low hanging fruit. It's just like, yeah, there's an administrator and that they're vetted and we kind of understand, and we take over, like Alex says, it's not a political role, it's not to do, but it's something where you can say, oh, there's a typo on this. And especially as a community thing, because there will be, as we edit, there's going to be like, oh, there's a typo in the PBL module, or there's, this paragraph needs to be changed. And it's once those political decisions, I don't know, political, but yeah. Anyway,
it's governance and operations, right? So this S3 pushes us towards this distinction, right? A governance decision being like, how are we going to do things, right? Like, what's the website going to say, right?
Yes.
Versus operations, who's going to take care of it? And do we compensate them? So if anybody does take the reins on bringing a proposal to the group, remember to attach a budget to it. We have funds to spend from Gimbal Pool and from Project Catalyst. We've allocated some of those funds to Notion accounts and to writing lessons for PPBL 2024. But we can allocate some funds for this. We keep using the word admin, and that is the right word, but it's a service admin, right? Some administrators, they love their bureaucratic power. Other administrators see their role as a servant. School principals are one example of this. There's both kinds, and you can imagine how the schools run differently, depending on how the principal sees their power, right? But this is service work, right? The proposal to say, how can we bring more voices in? How can we make sure that this website, this portal, this communication tool out to the world better reflects more of what's going on, more of what the opportunities are? It's a big service, right? It's an exciting proposal. And I just want to really reiterate, if anybody does take on that proposal, be sure to include some funding in it, right? That gives us also something real to talk about. Then we can compare that to the funds we have, and we can say, okay, yeah, here is what that is worth for this scope of work. Mr. Pabon.
Yeah. I completely agree. I don't like to respect to this the web page, the website, the Gimbalabs. My intention is not to put some limits in the imagination that the Gimbalabs member can display in this effort. But maybe if you go today and visit the Gimbalabs website, you can see an emptiness in general. But in the old days, we had it was full of information, different today. But no matter what, all the time, this site had some kind of personality. And I don't know if this new proposal about enhance the Gimbalabs website will change in some extent that kind of a structure. And I don't know, maybe currently we have some kind of a basic coding and basic artifacts to continue the work. I don't know, maybe it's my question is, will we change the personality of the Gimbalabs website?
Question is worth addressing in whatever anybody proposes, right?
Yeah.
I think it's worth distinguishing between the sort of like maintenance work that we're talking about with service or administration, and it might be a separate proposal to say, hey, it's time for a full brand overhaul, right? Like a redesign of the whole thing. I do think those would be
So,
differently scoped, but it's up to whoever wants to launch the work to decide what they want to propose to the group. And then Sebastian,
okay.
your question right there, that might make sense as a clarifying question to ask about the proposal that's written, right?
Yeah,
And maybe
because
if
no,
you
no,
didn't want
I'm
it to change, right, that would then become an objection to a proposal.
sure. Of course, as a proposer, I can present whatever I want, whatever I feel that it's the correct way. And me, as a Gimbalabs member, maybe I can defend the current state of the current structure of the website because I
Yeah.
have some feelings on that. You're right, man. You're right.
Yeah,
I understand.
initial proposals, but the benefit of writing the proposal is you have the ability to share your view of thinking about it. And one of two things will happen. People will say, yep, that makes sense, we agree. Or people will object to
Yeah.
parts of it and we'll refine it together.
It's okay. And as Ken said in the playground, it's not about consent. It's not about consensus. It's about consent.
Right.
Yeah. Thanks a lot.
That's exciting. Well, can I connect all of this to like the learning targets, lessons, and assignments? I threw that on the board as another node maybe in this conversation. And I think we've been working really hard, and the UI doesn't yet look like it because we've been focused on system architecture and that kind of thing. But can I give you guys a little preview of one part of the Andamio platform we're working on?
Yeah.
I want to share one screen so we can think about this together in the context of our work. Okay. And here's what I mean by, right, we haven't worried too much about the UI. Here's Andamio. Here's a bunch of courses, right? They're just in white boxes for now. Okay. And we're able to see, okay, here's my different courses that I'm planning as a creator. We were talking before about integrations with other tools. We do have a working Discord integration with this application, so people can sign in that way if they want to. And we have a GitHub integration that allows us to take comments on this initial UI and start to build up a better system. And so these integrations with these other tools are starting to emerge, and we're going to see more use of Discord because it is kind of a de facto standard in our ecosystems, even though it might not be the long-term solution. And we know that GitHub does have some valuable stuff that it can do for helping people collaborate. There's other stuff that we're going to be integrating with as we go along. And all this can be styled, right? These are just clean, rounded divs with borders around them that can be styled when it's time to, right? But all the plumbing is there. And if I want to start building a course, here's what it looks like. Same thing, nothing's really styled yet, but the options are here. Course name, I can edit my course, give it a different name, that kind of thing. And when it comes to creating a course, what have we been doing? Well, we start by creating modules. This course has 2 of them so far, right? 101, 102. Maybe I want, the advanced stuff, building, background, knowledge, about, hello world, module code. Oh, that's a 200 level module. We can make that what we want to. Okay, so new module, great. Once I have a module, I can start building it. And what are the 2 key components of a module? They're right here, but let me pause here. Chris, what do you think?
Yes, I want to ask you something like, what's the difference between Andamio and Gimbalabs? What's the relation between Andamio and Gimbalabs? That's something
Great.
I was guessing.
Yeah. So Gimbalabs is a kind of open community organization that has existed since the very end of the year 2020, right after, right as Fund 2 of Project Catalyst was happening. And it's existed in different forms, and it's been playing around with organizational structure from the beginning. As it turns out, this is good for innovation and playing around, but it's not great for sustainability and it's not great for longer term projects. One of the things that Gimbalabs has been for a few different organizations over the last 3 years is an incubator, right? We've supported other projects to get off the ground. We've written some initial code that has become other applications. And we've run like facilitation training that has led people to become facilitators or community leaders in other ways. As an incubator, right, I think we've built a really powerful infrastructure that does do a lot of what an incubator does. But one thing we don't have that, like, say, a Silicon Valley incubator would have is an endowment of funds that we can use to help the projects we're incubating and maybe even to invest in them. And I can imagine that as a longer term thing that Gimbalabs does continue to become if we ever do have that endowment of funds. So what's Andamio? Andamio is a project incubated by Gimbalabs. What's unique and confusing about it is that I happen to be a founder of Gimbalabs, and I also happen to be a founder of Andamio, right? Andamio is the first Gimbalabs incubated project that I actually jumped into because it's represents the thing that I really wanted to build in the first place. So that's the relationship. There is overlap between the two teams. Sebastian really leads communications at Gimbalabs, as well as doing a lot of other stuff around here to keep this place going. But he's also a core member of the Andamio startup team. Gimbalabs operates out in the open, right? Like we're doing here. Andamio is a private company that does things behind the scenes and works really hard as a startup of people who are really dedicated to making it happen. As time goes by, the lines might blur between the two, and we would love to open up Andamio when we're ready. But what we've learned by running Gimbalabs is you don't want to open up things too early. You just need to do the really hard work with committed people of getting the first things done. So that's what we've been doing. And that's why, for example, the smart contracts that we've written, the backends that we've written, and this front end that's now has a lot of the architecture, but none of the design. All of this came from that kind of dedicated work. Hopefully, if we're successful, right, if Andamio is financially successful, hopefully that can help Gimbalabs now stand up, right? If you do think about an incubator making an investment in a product, a lot of us from Gimbalabs are investing our time right now. Well, if that pays off financially, maybe it gives Gimbalabs some of that endowment we're talking about to be able to be a better incubator of projects, right? It's one thing to have a little bit of Gimbal Pool rewards. It's nice to have some Project Catalyst proposals working out. It would be even better to have our own streams of income, right, to fund a treasury that helps to launch the sorts of projects that we're learning how to propose and then to launch together right now. And this is what I really wanted to show you here. That's why I wanted to show you this, because what we're trying to build is the interface. What's it? The interface, right? The point at which parties communicate with each other. And those can be, right, humans or animals, but they can also be technical systems. Interfaces allow things to intersect with each other and to communicate between them. Our proposal is that this structure right here, modules consisting of learning targets and assignments, are that interface. what are the implications of this, right? What's a learning target? I can dance, I can swim, right? You write an I can statement. I can. These fundamentally empowering words. It's really easy. It's just 4 letters. It's 5 characters, right? 4 letters and a space. It's 2 simple words that when you hear them over and over again, they can lose their impact. I can. Who? You. What? You can. You can. You can do what? Well, we're going to try to be very specific. We're going to use verbs. We want you to be able to dance. We want you to be able to swim. Okay? We want you to be able to build whatever you want to be able to build. I can. And these words, to me, really do cut to the core of what our driver says. Trying to empower people to solve problems. What does somebody say when they are empowered to solve a problem? They say, yes, I can. Right? So learning targets are that statement of intent that allow us to communicate across a network what we can do. Assignments are the proof that we can do them. But for anybody who's in the education circle, for anybody who's ever thought about like the Plutus PBL course before, notice what's missing from this list. Add SLT, add assignment. You notice how lesson is not here? We've got learning targets and we've got assignments, but no lessons. Because what's a lesson? A lesson is just the support to achieve the learning targets. Do we want to teach you how to dance? We sure do. So we're going to say that. And then we're going to give you a project or an assignment so that you can show yourself and you can maybe show other people that indeed you know how to dance. As for the lesson, it can only exist in connection to a learning target, right? And there's just a little icon here for this right now. The lesson has to be created only in relation to a learning target, okay? Here's a beat to help you dance, for example, right? We're just playing around with the system, right? And then we're able to edit that lesson. We're going to play with this to build the PPBL 2024 course starting next week. But before the end of this week, I'm excited to have the opportunity just to drop this concept, right? Lessons are optional. It's a really nice service to teach people a lesson. It's the learning targets and the assignment. This is what's represented on chain. This is what gives us the interface to communicate across the network. What were you supposed to be able to do? And how did you prove that you could do it? Yeah. So Ken, what do you think?
I'm just wondering, like, does a specific lesson necessarily have to be pointing towards one learning target? Or could a lesson be pointing towards more than one learning target?
Excellent. Yeah, so in this implementation, the correspondence is exactly 1-to-1, right? If you write a learning target, you can create a lesson about it. When you want to combine learning targets, you can create an assignment, which gives people a guided opportunity to combine what they know, right? All right, we're going to teach you how to dance, we're going to teach you how to swim, and then we're going to combine those 2 things into an assignment where you do a little biathlon, you do both, okay?
Yeah, I guess my question had more to do with the overall structure, whether it has to be a tree structure, or whether or not you can have interrelated things that come from different streams of learning.
Yeah, and they'll certainly build on each other, right? You think about like the Plutus PBL course, right? Because this one right here is not a great example. Usually within a module, the learning targets will build on each other. First, I have to create a wallet. Then I have to get some testnet data. Then I have to mint a token. Those are three distinct things that somebody can be taught to do. And when they learn each one of those things in order, each one that comes next further solidifies the knowledge that came before. But we talked about this word focus earlier in this meeting, right? We serve learners best when we show them one focused thing at a time. Here's the learning target. Here is very specifically what we're going to focus on teaching you right now. If the course is well designed, like I said, this learning target will build on the ones that came before it. And you're going to see the integration of all this knowledge. But we're able to teach lessons one at a time by saying very clearly to anybody, here's the thing we promise to teach, and we promise to focus on teaching this one thing right now. How's that feel? So exciting times ahead. Really excited to be taking these thoughts from today. Thanks for the step back and connecting a few dots. I imagine this is productive time, but we'll know if it was based on what kind of proposals come out of this work, what kind of focus we're able to now define for ourselves and take here. I'm excited to keep going with the PBL course development next week. And like I just showed you, to bring this very early iteration of this platform to all of us who want to start building that content. But let's do a quick checkout round. I'm just checking the time. We got time for everybody to do a quick checkout. Sebastian, how you leaving us today?
Really good, really good. Thanks a lot for this time. It's really exciting each time. Thanks.
Back at you. Alex.
Thank you. It's a nice meeting, and I like how you bring up the topic of or theme of how productive was this meeting. And I think we could ask ourselves at each meeting, what do you think? Was this meeting productive or was it not? I like how we move forward, but yeah, well, I hate how discussions take up all the space and time, you know. But people say that if people don't discuss, then it's authoritarian, or how it's called, you know, government. And then it's easy to do things quickly, but then 10 years later, everybody regrets. So I'm pretty happy that we have discussions, and yeah, thanks.
Thanks for being in this space. Chris, how you leaving us?
Good. Well, was great explanation and everything. Really helpful, and really like everything you're doing. So glad to be here. Thank you.
Appreciate it, man. Ken, how you leaving us?
Yeah, good. It's always nice to try to think out these ideas.
You're here. Adrian, how about you?
I think it was a productive meeting. Yeah, I like it.
And Harsha?
I really liked it. Just the discussions around the community side, like, made me think about things that I didn't think when I was talking with Hinson. So I thought it was great.
Yeah. Newman, you still got sound? It sounds like it's 40 seconds till yoga.
Yeah, I think that this was great. I mean, those ideas around discussion versus practicality, but like Harsha said, like there's real actionable items that are helping me and think about the community circle in a different way. And it was really cool to get the Andamio sort of thing. And then Chris's question about like, hey, what is Gimbalabs and Andamio? So yeah, it's discussion, but it feels like it's focused and driving towards something. So I feel like I'm in a different spot. I didn't feel like I'm in a circle. So yeah, thanks.
Woo! Take it. Yeah, Harsha, thanks for presenting today and facilitating that part. Newman, thanks for bringing your notes from Ken yesterday and facilitating the early part. Thanks you all for being here. And yeah, have a good Thursday, Friday, weekend. See you next week.
Bye.
Take care, everybody.